Good evening and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals virtual meeting. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances. And it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some feasible, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the request area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. Now, procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. After your case is announced by Mr. Donadio, the moderator will connect you to the meeting so you can present your case to the board. Once you have completed your presentation, if anyone on the board or in the planning department has any questions, they will be asked. Then any interested party who would like to speak on this case will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions and concerns, after which the case will be closed. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. You can contact the planning department after 12 p.m. tomorrow for the status of your case. There are no adjournments tonight. So, Mr. Donadio, can you start, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 1-18484, Diverse Equity Solutions, LLC, 49 Upper Dock Road, Kings Park. The location of the property is the north side of Upper Dock Road and the south side of Old Dock Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered, to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope that is higher within 15% or within the flood hazard zone area, to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 19 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 7 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 17 feet, to increase the maximum height from 35 feet to 43 feet for a proposed 654 square foot second story addition, a proposed 110 square foot roof deck, and proposed 194 square foot front porch addition, adding to a lawful non-conforming structure.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Hey, this is Kevin from Wall Design and Build.
Did you submit all the necessary paperwork?
I did, yes. And Eric Dielman, the property owner, is on to introduce me.
Okay, fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, this is Eric Dielman. I'm here, and Kevin Reeve is representing me on my behalf.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, again, could you just state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
Yep, Kevin Reim, R-E-I-M as in Mary. Address is 10 Country Oaks Drive in Kings Park, New York.
Okay, thank you.
This application's back before you guys. We were here on March 30th of this year to get all the variance approvals, with the exception of the height. Based on the town code, because we're in the Nessequa River corridor, we have to actually take the height from the lowest grade. So when we take it from the lowest grade, it actually comes out to 43 feet and exceeds 3 stories. when you look at the house as per from the upper dock side of the road, though, I mean, this house is 28 feet from the upper dock side, 35 feet is the height from average grade. So again, this isn't a substantial request. We're not going really above the limit of permitted code. So, and all the other cases, all the other variances were heard before this. So we're not changing anything from what was originally presented at the March 30th hearing.
All right, fine. So you're just here tonight for a height variance.
Yeah, correct. That's right. Just to get the height variance added to from what the original denial was.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Planning, any questions?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Yes. I want to be heard.
Okay, could you state your name and address for the record, please, and spell your last name?
Lucille Romanowski, Romanansky, 750 Old Dock Road.
Okay, Lucille, go ahead.
Sorry, I really like these people, but this affects me a lot. I would love for you people to come and stand in my backyard and see what already looms over my house. And now it will tower over my house. I mean, how would you like it if your next door neighbor, like all of a sudden was building a 4-story house with a deck on top? You know, I don't think it's compliant to the neighborhood with all the cottage style houses in the wooded area. I mean, it greatly affects my privacy. I'm still, you know, wondering about water drainage, and this is going to block sun, and I'm an avid gardener. You know, this is why I moved here, the wooded, you know, the area. But I really wish you people would please consider this application carefully. Thank you for your time.
Lucille, looking at the original picture, is your house to the left or to the right?
I live down the hill.
Right. So
And
if you're looking up the hill, is your house on the left or
I'm
the
on-
right-hand side?
I'm on the left side.
You're on the left. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank
You
you.
can actually see my house in the picture that's on the screen now,
Oh, okay,
way down there.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard on this application? Peter, do we have anybody else?
Oh, no.
No?
Mr. Chairman, we're not seeing anyone else that would like to speak.
Okay, fine. Kevin, would you like to go back and answer Lucille's concerns, please?
I mean, we spoke about her concerns, you know, at the March 30th hearing, and I understand where she's coming from. You know, just due to the uniqueness of this property and the great slope change, you know, again, the height variance is just, we're only here again because of the height variance, because of the Nesquag River corridor. You know, as I see it, I understand her concerns. I mean, it's not our intention to invade her privacy. You know, we're putting this roof deck up so that we can, you know, use this unique property layout to see the, you know, water and everything and the unique feature it has, you know. I mean, there's not going to be any runoff from that area. And, you know, we are going to be putting in a rain garden up front for the proposed cover porch, you know, as requested by the LWRP. So, and we also received an and New York State DEC waiver, so they didn't see anything environmentally wrong with this. So that's all I have for her.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Can I have a motion to close this application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18575, Oakside Realty LLC, 143 Oakside Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Oakside Drive, 3,440 feet east of Landing Avenue. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 60 feet to 50 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 100 feet to 78 feet, to permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive land, slopes greater than 15%, to permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25% for a proposed 3,951 square foot, two-story single-family dwelling.
Good evening.
Hi, Don King, 75 East Main Street, Kings Park, New York, attorney for the applicant. At the last meeting, the planning department asked us to move the house 10 feet forward. The zoning board of appeals asked us to move the house 10 feet forward. We complied, and we ask you to grant the variances.
Okay, fine. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
Oh, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, no one has their hand raised that they'd like to speak.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Peter. With that said, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
The next application on the agenda is 18594, Damon and Kimberly Dorian, 9 Whispering Woods Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property is the west side of Whispering Woods Drive, 566 feet east of Plymouth Boulevard. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard from 75 feet, which is existing at 57 feet, to 36 feet for an existing 560 square foot second story rear deck.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Yes, this is Damon Dorian.
You're gonna present your own case, Damon?
Yes,
Okay, fine. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Damon, D-A-M-O-N, Dorian, D-O-R-R-I-E-N, 9 Whispering Woods Drive, Smithtown, New York, 11787.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead to tell us why you're here tonight.
So I'm here tonight because I need a variance to reduce the footage of my rear upper story deck. When I bought the house, there was over 1,000 square footage of decking, which we took down and replaced, but made a smaller deck. It's essentially the same deck, it's just newer and smaller. However, I need a variance for the amount of feet between the rear of the yard and the actual furthest point of the deck.
Okay, fine. All right, thank you. Is there anyone on the board that has any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
It's just on my side of the street, it's impossible to meet this 75-foot
All right,
footage. I think every resident has to apply for this variance, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, we'll look into it. Okay, thank you. Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, nobody seems to have their hand raised that they'd like to speak on this.
All right, thank you. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18595, Cosentino Realty Group, Chick-fil-A, Inc., 656 Comac Road, Comac, the location of the property, the east side of Comac Road, 60 feet south of Henry Street. The property is owned SCB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard from 50 feet to 30 feet to permit a canopy in the required front yard for a proposed 2,939 square foot canopy.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Jessica Zalen. I'm with Amato Law Group PLLC with offices at 666 Old Country Road in Garden City, New York. I'm here on behalf of the applicants Cosentino Realty Group and Chick-fil-A Inc. in connection with their application for a variance to construct an exterior canopy at the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant.
All right.
Also, so the board is aware, Chad Baker, the Senior Development Manager of Chick-fil-A, is also present to speak on this application.
Okay, fine.
The applicants here are requesting area variances to install a proposed canopy at the order point of the drive-through. The specific variances are that the canopy will be set back by 30 feet, whereas a 50-foot setback is required, and that the canopy will be located within the required front yard, whereas accessory structures are not permitted within this area. These two variances are requested for one canopy structure, which will be located within the setback area. This proposed canopy is approximately 1,400 square feet. I just would like to make note that the public notice issued for this project references 2,939 square foot canopy, which is actually the approximate area of both canopies that are proposed as part of the overall site improvements at this property. However, only one of those canopies requires variance relief. The applicants have previously received approvals from the town for the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant at this property. The existing restaurant was constructed in 2006 and has been in operation since that time. The property is currently developed with the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant with associated parking, landscaping, outdoor dining, and drive-through facilities. And the applicants are now proposing certain site improvements in an effort to streamline the operations at the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant. Specifically, as I mentioned, the applicants propose to construct this approximately 1,400 square foot canopy at the order point of the drive-through on the western portion of the property. The canopy will be mounted on thin columns and will be elevated to allow clear visibility beneath the canopy. There will also be fan and heating elements installed beneath the canopy. The purpose of the proposal to install this canopy is to protect customers and Chick-fil-A team members during face-to-face ordering transactions in that location. Typically, Chick-fil-A employees walk through the drive-through line in order to take orders and relay them to the restaurant. These types of transactions currently do occur on site, but can only happen in certain types of weather conditions. So these canopies with the associated heating and cooling elements will provide greater protection for the Chick-fil-A employees and their customers. This is the only portion of the applicant's proposed site improvements that requires a variance. If the board is interested, I can give you some additional information about additional improvements that are proposed as part of the overall plan to improve the efficiency of the drive-through operations, or If not, we can.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm assuming that the canopy is going to protect your employees and your customers from the elements, rain and snow.
Yes.
Do they have any heating elements underneath the canopy to
Yes.
protect them in the winter?
There are going to be heaters that will be mounted beneath the canopies. If there was a photo exhibit that was provided to the town earlier, and if you're able to go to, I believe, slide 4 of that photo exhibit, you can see that there are some heating fixtures and fans mounted beneath the canopy. This is a photo of a similar canopy at another Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's representative of what this type of canopy will look like.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments for the board. First, I'd like to call out that the call of the ad is actually incorrect. It mentions that there's a request for a proposal for a 2,939 square foot canopy. As Ms. Zalen pointed out, the canopy is actually 1,414 square feet. I believe that between the two canopies that they're proposing to construct, they have a total of approximately 2,900 square feet. And I think that the number was mistakenly inserted into the ad. So they're actually requesting a front yard setback for a 1,414 square foot canopy. With that said, I just want the board to be aware, planning had met with the prior project coordinator who was working on this, John Baker, possibly upwards of about a year ago. At that time, when we were discussing the project with Mr. Baker, we were looking at a proposal for a substantially smaller canopy, possibly even some kiosks that have roofs over them. This particular canopy measures approximately 25 feet wide by 55 feet long. It's more in line with the size of a filling station canopy that covers 3 rows of pumps for gasoline. And we feel that because the size of the canopy has been increased substantially, the scope of the project is going to have a considerable impact on Comac Road because of the reduced front yard setback. So at this time, planning would recommend that perhaps the board consider having the applicant reduce the size of the proposed canopy.
All right, thank you. I just have one other question. Some of your other Chick-fil-A's that don't have these canopies, will they be going to the various towns and requesting variances to put them in?
It's my understanding that Chick-fil-A is considering these types of improvements at several of their restaurants. If you would like to pose that question to Mr. Baker of Chick-fil-A, he might be able to further clarify on that point.
Okay.
Yes, yes, Chad Baker with Chick-fil-A, happy to clarify that. Yes, we have about 2,600 freestanding restaurants, and our goal is to implement canopies at all of those restaurants. And in fact, we've implemented it at probably 3/4 of those restaurants already.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
To add, Mr. Baker, would you be able to just let the board know how you have seen operations improve at those restaurants as these changes have been implemented?
Sure. And just for people who are familiar with the area, there is another Chick-fil-A location in Smithtown where we have similar canopies installed. That's a newer restaurant. As far as how this affects operations, it really is our response to OSHA's initiative for water, rest, and shade for outside employees. And so the operator provides the water and the rest, and the Chick-fil-A corporate office provides the shade. And by providing the shade, we make capital improvements at the restaurant that we feel are the correct size and in the correct position so that it provides an efficient drive-through operation. Our We have learned over the years that providing menu boards and pre-sale boards in the drive-through, they actually slow down the drive-through operations. And so when you have a team member outside taking an order face-to-face, that transaction is much more relational. And typically the customers already know what they want. And so it speeds up the menu, the ordering of that menu item. And so the canopies really protect the team members, in inclement weather. They don't necessarily have to be under the canopy the whole time, but because this is a northeast location, we are using our prototypical canopy, which measures the exact dimensions that the planner indicated earlier. So this is the size canopy that is prototypical for our restaurants. And this is what we're installing across the country. So we appreciate your consideration of it.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add, the canopies will be elevated in order to allow for visual clearance beneath the canopies by passing motorists. And we believe that the canopies will be sufficiently set back from Comac Road in order to not interfere with visibility in this area. We understand that the board shall take into consideration the benefits to the applicant if the variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and community. And granting the requested variances for this proposed canopy would benefit the applicants as well as their employees and their patrons by allowing for greater protection from the elements during inclement weather, and would not result in any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community, as the canopy would be, as I said, sufficiently set back and elevated in order to avoid visibility issues.
All right, again, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we are not seeing anybody with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, fine, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18596. Antonio Lopez, 5 Val Court, Comac. The location of the property, the west side of Val Court, 152 feet north of Parkway Drive North. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 31 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 11 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 26 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 43% for a proposed 180 square foot front porch.
Okay, could I have the applicant, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Antonio Lopes. It's L-O-P-E-S. I am the homeowner and I'll be representing myself today.
Okay, fine, Antonio. Go right ahead. Tell us why you're here tonight.
So as mentioned, looking to have a few variances changed for the front porch that I'd like to add. It sounds like a lot of variances, but because of the shape of the lot, you can see the right corner of the front porch highlighted in yellow comes forward into the front yard and extends a little bit into the side. Again, because the property line's slanted compared to the house. I don't believe this is going to impact any adjacent properties. It's not, shouldn't obstruct any major views or anything like that and encroach on anybody's property in any bad way. I don't believe it's substantial. It's kind of in line with many other renovations I see happening around town. I don't believe it could be achieved in any other way because the left side of the house is a double garage. So we can't put the porch on that side. It would only really work on the right side of the house. I don't even see how it could possibly cause any adverse effects on the environment. But if there are any, please point them out. And there was nothing done to create the situation. The house is built in the 60s and it's been unmodified since. So I don't think it's something that anybody caused.
All right. Okay, thank you. Blaze? Blaze?
Yes.
Could you address that 43% FAR?
So yeah, I was waiting for Mr. Lopez to finish. I wanted to bring to the board's attention that it appears when you review the architect's notes on the proposal that there was a miscalculation in the lot area. They have it shown as being approximately 7,500 square feet, when in reality, the lot area is approximately 13,900 square feet. So the floor area ratio would not be at 43%. Actually, it's existing at about 22.7%. So there really isn't an issue with the FAR. So that variance is not needed.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Is there anyone on the board that has any questions on this application?
No,
Thank you.
No. And planning spoke, so is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we are not seeing anybody with their hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18597. Andrew Davikas, 3 Cliftwood Place, Kings Park. The location of the property is the east side of Cliftwood Place, 160 feet north of Bristol Lane. The property is owned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum distance to a rear lot line from 6 feet to 4 feet for an existing 27-foot above-ground swimming pool with attached 266 square foot wood shed.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here for the applicant.
Wood shed or wood deck?
Wood deck, I'm sorry.
Okay, the applicant here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm the applicant. I'm sorry, I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting with offices at 1031 Main Street, Port Jefferson, New York.
Okay, and all the necessary paperwork was submitted.
Yes, we submitted a power of attorney along with the mailings and posting affidavits this afternoon.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go right ahead now.
Okay, so good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My client is actually getting ready to sell his home. And as such, he is doing a little cleanup and legalizing a rear addition or conversion, and also the above ground pool with the deck. The above ground pool itself actually maintains the required setback, but the deck is encroaching into the setback and is just maintaining a 4.9 foot side yard setback, correct. So I did some research in the area and we did find some similar grants, which I could read off if the board would like me to, but they are near identical to what we're seeking today. And if the board is able to look at the aerials, there are very similar circumstances in the neighborhood, one right next door and one other house over, so at 7 Cliffwood Place and 5 Cliffwood Place, as well as on the next street over on Ardmore, the houses that are actually adjacent to my client's property just to the north. So this is not unusual for the neighborhood, not out of character, will definitely not create any type of undesirable change to the neighborhood, and and not substantial in my opinion, and nor will it create any environmental impact on the area. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
It appears that the deck is only 4 foot in one corner. Is that correct?
That's correct. So most of the deck actually maintains the required setback. So
Right.
because the property curves on the, I guess what we would consider the south side, it curves in. It's creating
Right.
the increased setback.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we are not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18598. Eileen J. Kirschoff, irrevocable trust. 41 South Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property, the east side of South Avenue, 925 feet south of Halleck Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the front yard from 40 feet to 25 feet and from 40 feet to 29 feet for a proposed 36 square foot front porch and 10 square foot front cantilever to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet.
And can I have the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, I am also the agent for the applicant for this particular case.
Okay, fine. And again, all the necessary paperwork and power of attorney has been submitted.
Actually, in this case, the paperwork was submitted. The power of attorney, however, was not, because the applicant is here with me tonight. And I believe they are noted under Curtis Morrison in the queue.
Oh, can I have them first, please?
Yes. Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Okay, Curtis, can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Curtis R. Morrison, 159 Rocky Point Road, Middle Island, New York, 11953.
Okay, and you would like this young lady to speak on your behalf?
I would, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting with offices at 1031 Main Street, Port Jefferson, New York. Good evening again. So we are proposing to add a 36 square foot roof over the masonry steps to the front of this home. This is an existing home built non-conforming and certified. So the house itself does not meet the required 40-foot front yard setback. So with adding this 36 square foot roof over porch, we are just merely creating a better aesthetic to the front of the house, beautifying it and protecting the front door from the elements. We are also adding and renovating the house in general, but on the second floor, there is a small cantilever that's part of the second floor renovation, which is also encroaching into the front yard. It is a cantilever, so it's something that doesn't even touch the ground. So the setback is in my opinion, de minimis and not substantial for both cases. As far as the groundwater, so there is an existing test hole that was done as part of the subdivision. It is showing that the geologist is showing that water was encountered at 13 feet, but apparently, I suppose from the way I read it, from highway runoff, the water table could get a little bit higher and encroaches in that 10-foot groundwater, I guess, minimum requirement. So we don't expect what we are doing to this home as a whole, but for the variances we're requesting today to affect the groundwater at all. We are only adding 36 square feet, and then I believe just another 10 square feet for the cantilever, which will create a very nominal roof runoff, and will also be led by gutters and leaders to the appropriate dry wells. We did find some similar grants in the neighborhood for the front yard setbacks. This is actually not uncommon at all for this neighborhood. I'm happy to read those cases out if the board so wishes, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Fine, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18602, David Pitman, 36 Pineland Street, Nesconset. The location of the property is the west side of Pineland Street, 126 feet south of Magnolia Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 25 feet to 14 feet, which is existing at 16 feet, to reduce the minimum total side yards from 28 feet to 9 feet, which is existing at 9 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 40%, 31% existing, for proposed 397 square foot first floor addition, 402 square foot second floor addition, and a 15 square foot front porch.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Hello, my name is David Pitman. I live at 36 Pineland Street in Wisconsin.
Are you going to present your own case, David?
I'm going to do my best. Yes, sir.
Okay, go right ahead.
So just a little background on the property. This was actually my wife's grandmother's summer vacation home back when Lake Ronkonkoma was where everyone, all the cool folks in Brooklyn headed out in the summer. So it's a property that's been in her family for some time. About 17 years ago, my wife and I moved here. A couple years later, we purchased the property from her father and put a second story on that first story bungalow, and was here 15 years ago, perhaps, thinking that, it would be plenty large enough for the kids we hope to have. Here we are 15 years later with three, still growing children in a house that just doesn't fit us anymore. The reality is that we have three children that are growing, that are very active. We had a first floor bedroom that has turned into an office because my wife now telecommutes. Part of it is because she works for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and they're on a telecommuting plan. So she's at home half of the time. So we had to sort of change a bedroom into an office. We just don't have enough space for the three kids. I don't have a garage. We don't have a den. We don't have a basement. There's a number of things missing to make this house work for our family of five. We have spent the last year and a half or so, looking at the possibilities of moving. We live next door to my in-laws. The reality of separating this property from her family, from our family, is just sort of too emotional to think about and go down the road. So what we did was to try our best to create an addition on the right side, looking at the house, the right side of the house where there's currently sort of the end of the driveway and a tree, to put an addition there, to create the 4 bedrooms that we have now, but all upstairs, to create an extra bathroom for the kids. And then on the first floor to create a sort of, den kid place to be, and a sort of, half storage garage, I guess we call it finished storage, so that we can put all of our, sports equipment and all that sort of stuff that currently sits in our entryway. If I go down the list of variance considerations, I don't think this causes an undesirable change. In fact, I think it matches many of the homes that are in this neighborhood. It will make us similar to my in-laws' house. To our left when looking at the house, the gentleman behind us is a builder and has a beautiful house, just put a second story addition with a deck that sort of, or a balcony that overlooks my property. So I think it matches the size of his house. So I think in some ways it matches the direction that this neighborhood is going. I think it helps to increase sort of the overall value of living in this community. I don't see any other real way of adding this space to this house. You know, there's no basement that we can convert into a bedroom or you know, office space. This seems to be the only possible place on the property to put it. You have to tell me whether you think this is substantial. This is not something that I've done often. Of course, it certainly shouldn't have any real impact on the conditions of our neighborhood. Like I said, it matches the other house. In fact, there's a house across the street that has seemingly been under construction for a very long time that has created a much larger property, a much larger space. And the last one about being self-created, obviously it's proposed, not existing. At the end of the day, this is the way that we can stay in this house. This is the way that we can keep the house in my wife's family. And this is the way I can keep, the relationship with my in-laws of helping them the same way they help us. So I know that's not part of the considerations, but I just thought it was important for you to know that. I think that's it. If there's any questions at this time?
Last time you were here, I'm sorry, I missed it. What did you do? So you expanded out the back?
I've been to you twice. I was to you about 15 years ago, and we just we kept the footprint, and we just went up. So the front yard, the setback variances for the front and the side are because the existing bungalow, right, was built before the current lines were in place. So we didn't change the footprint in that original addition. We just put a second story on, but we kept the original footprint of the house. I was actually to you about a couple of months ago. Mr. Donadio actually was very helpful in walking me through this process, because when we did the housing, we didn't realize that a shed needed a permit as well. So we sort of went through that whole process to get us to here. So again, yeah, about 15 years ago, it was just to put the second story. The front of the house to the front isn't changing. The side, the side was already granted at 9, or whatever the existing is there at 9 in a previous variance. So this is just, to change the structure of the current house.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
So I just want to give the board some history on the property. Mr. Pitman did speak a little bit about that. Roughly in June of 1975, the board granted variances to split the original lot that was comprised of old file map lots into 2 building lots, one new vacant lot and the lot that the house currently sits on. The lot that the house currently sits on received a variance to reduce the lot area from 10,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet. And I'm assuming that at some point in the future, there was another home built on the vacant lot as well. As Mr. Pitman said, he did come before the board back in sometime in July of 2005. They did a second floor addition to the home to increase the amount of livable floor area that they would need for their family. They were granted some setbacks, side yard setback to 3 feet, a front yard setback to 16 feet. And of course, the FAR, the floor area ratio, was increased from 25% to 31%. So with that in mind, for the board's consideration, I don't really know what the floor area ratio of the other houses that are adjacent to the Pitman's homes are. I do know that some of the lots are larger, obviously more than 7,500 square feet. So that's something that the board may want to take into consideration when deciding whether they want to approve the increase in FAR.
All right, fine. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, no hands are raised at this time.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Nope, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Have a nice evening.
You as well.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18603, SSC Holdings Group LLC, 863 West Jericho Turnpike, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of West Jericho Turnpike, approximately 820 feet west of Plymouth Boulevard. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum parking from 70 to 34 spaces for an existing commercial building.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, my name is Joseph Lucania. I'm the owner at 863 West Jericho Turnpike in Smithtown. And I would like to have Carmine Grasso speak on my behalf.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Carmine, you there?
Sorry, I was muted there.
There you go.
Okay.
Just introduce yourself, Carmine, so we get it on the record, please.
My name is Carmine Grasso from Cataldo Grasso Architects, located at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I represent Mr. Lucania and SSC Holdings Group in their request for a parking variance. I just want to give a little bit of background on the property so you know why we're here for this variance. The existing building was constructed in 1970. In the 51 years that the building has been
I'm
here.
sorry, somebody has to mute. In the 51 years.
Oh, sorry. In the 51 years the building's been here, there's been a number of tenants in the building, many of which have been retail uses. During the majority of that time, the property was zoned WSI, which, as you know, retail use is not permitted in. My client purchased the property in 2018, and at that time, we wanted to make some improvements to the building and the site. So we had met with the planning department back then and came up with a plan to do some facade renovations on the building. And we got a site plan exemption approved for the site for those facade renovations back in 2018 on October 18th. At that time, when we were meeting with the planning department on that, we discussed the fact that the uses in that building were not approved due to the fact that they were mostly retail and the property was zoned WSI. And planning had brought to our attention that the previous owner had already applied for a zone change, but never actually completed the zone change application. And it was thought at that time that it would be a good idea to move forward with that so that we can bring the uses in the building into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So with that, at that point, my client had went back to the town and continued the application for the zoning variance, and we got a zone change granted on March 25th of this year to change the zone to NB zoning. In that zone change, there were 3 conditions of approval. The back portion of the property, part of the back portion of the property is zoned R10. So one of the conditions was that R10 zoning of the property would not be changed at all. It would remain undisturbed. Second condition was that the parking on the property shall be brought into compliance unless a variance is granted by the BZA. And then the third condition was just that new landscaping would be provided on the property subject to the Board of Site Plan Review. So now we're here today to request a parking variance. Sounds like it's a substantial reduction. It's a reduction from 70 spaces to 34 spaces. So it's a reduction of about 51%, which again is a substantial number, but we feel that it's okay because the parking that's provided on the site has been adequate for the uses in this building for these 51 years. Like I said, the uses have changed, the tenants have changed, but they have pretty much been mostly retail type uses. It's our understanding that when the town board had approved the zone change, they did it with the understanding that this parking variance would have to be granted in order to make this zone change feasible. I know we've discussed this with planning, and everybody kind of feels that we'd be best to have this variance granted rather than to go back into the back part of the property and try to develop more parking back there. We feel that would be more of a disruption to the residential neighbors that are to the rear of the property. With regard to the area variance considerations, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, only because the answer to all of them is pretty much the same, that the conditions have existed for about 50 years and there really hasn't been an impact. We're not looking to make any changes to the current parking situation. We're not changing anything in the physical environment of the property. And there's really no way to make these, to make the parking come into compliance without having to expand into the back of the property, which is one of the conditions of the zone change. So with the board's discretion, we hope that you would provide us with a favorable decision. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Planning?
Oh, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands up at this time.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night, everybody.
Thank you, you too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 604, Michael Florentino, 115 Cypress Drive, Kings Park. The location of the property, the east side of Cypress Drive, 760 feet north of Tulip Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 6 feet, to reduce total side yards from 28 feet to 15 feet, which are existing at 26 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 38 feet, which is existing at 40 feet, for a proposed 210 square foot two-story addition, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 9 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 38 feet, again, existing at 40 feet, for an existing 188 square foot outside basement entrance enclosure.
Could I have the applicant, please? Is the applicant here?
You're muted. There you go.
Hi, thank you. My name is Michael Florentino at 115 Cypress Drive, Kings Park, New York. I'm here with my architect, Carlos Di Fonseca.
Okay, you can have your architect speak on your behalf, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, could you introduce yourself, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address?
Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Florentino, F-L-O-R-E-N-T-I-N-O, 115 Cypress Drive, Kings Park, New York, 11754.
And if your architect's going to speak, we need to have him do the same thing.
My name is Carlos Di Fonseca, 164 Beaver Drive, Kings Park, New York.
Could you spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, please, sir?
D-E-F-O-N-S-E-C-A. First name Carlos, C-A-R-L-O-S.
Okay, thank you. All right, you can start now.
Yes, so we propose a renovation of the existing house on the right side of the house. We're planning to remove an existing greenhouse and build an extension to be used as a dining room. The existing house doesn't have a dining room now. The way the house is laid out it doesn't really allow space for a dining table. They have a large family, they have grandchildren that come and all that. So there is no really space where they could have a proper dining room. That's why we are requesting this variance. There is no other place in the house that we could extend, but only where we propose it, which is towards the side yard. This will be a two-story extension. It will complement the house, and it will be a significant improvement to the layout of the house, and it's really needed. On the opposite side, then we have a enclosed step, it's a shed enclosure, 2 steps to the basement that was built prior my client purchasing the house. And the reason that they finally done, there was a lot of water issues, and they were going into the basement, so that's why that shed was constructed. That's basically what we needed. That's what basically need, and my client could.
Yeah, we're going to get a variance on the existing structure that was there when I bought the house, because I didn't know we needed it until we laid out these plans and proposed to do the kitchen extension. And the kitchen extension brings my property to about the same distance away from the property line as my neighbor Lois, who's also fine with it. I've spoken to her and sent them letters, and they are aware that I've been wanting to do this for 10 years. And like I said, we can't fit a dining room table in the dining room because that green room is so small, and there's no room in the kitchen. We can't go behind it because there's a fireplace and a staircase on that side. So it's either go further into the back of the yard, which, we have a pool back there, or to the side yard, just to give us that enough room to put a dining room table in there for my family and my grandkids.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18599, 220 Mount Pleasant Road, LLC, Starbucks. 220 Mount Pleasant Road, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Mount Pleasant Road and Wisconsin-Port Jefferson Highway. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the required parking from 120 stalls to 91 stalls, to reduce truck loading spaces from 1 to 0, to reduce the required setback from the residential zoning district from 10 feet to 6 feet, to increase the number of curb cuts from 2 to 3, to reduce the curb cut setback to the residential district from 75 feet to 20 feet for a counter service restaurant, to reduce the minimum buffer for a counter service restaurant to the residence district from 25 feet to 6 feet, to reduce the queue lane for a counter service restaurant to the residential district line from 50 feet to 40 feet. That would be for building A. And from 48 feet, and to 48 feet for building B. To increase the height of 3 wall signs on building A from 15 feet to 19 feet, 21 feet, and 25 feet. To reduce the parking setback to the residence district from 50 feet to 6 feet. To increase the number of ground signs for building A from 1 to 9. To increase the number of wall signs on building A from 1 to 6. To reduce the setback for a ground sign to a residential lot from 75 feet to 62 feet for building A's menu board.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, Vincent DeCanio, 117 Terry Road, Smithtown, New York.
Are you going to present it, Mr. DeCanio, or is someone going to do it for you?
Yes, I'll be presenting it, and we also have our engineering from Bowler Associates to also.
Okay, fine. Go right ahead.
Well, it's currently it's a Friendly's restaurant. Who the business is obviously suffering, and there is also the World Tile, who is no longer in business, and the current 7-Eleven that's going to eventually move. So we feel that utilizing the same footprint of Friendly's, which will become the Starbucks, with the outline that Blaze just identified and according to the site plan, works and has been there for all these years. It is conforming MB zoning. We feel it's an excellent use. And the second building, we would be demolishing the two buildings that exist and creating a much smaller footprint to accommodate the one site, which is one tax lot. And it's abutting, as the board knows, the 32 homes, which was originally Yellow Top Farms, and I was the developer of the 32 residential homes adjacent to this property. If there are any questions or any concerns, as I said, we have our engineer staff here that we could identify any of the concerns from the board or from the neighborhood.
All right, fine. Does anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
Just a quick question. You said that the existing 7-Eleven would eventually be moving. Do you have a timeline for that?
Yes, I believe their lease is up in 2023, and they're currently planning on moving at the Route 111 site, former Burger King site.
Okay, thank you.
What's the reason for 9 signs on a building A?
The reason, and once again, the engineer could identify it more closely. Because it's a drive-through. There is a menu board for the normal signage that would typically be a part of the drive-through, and I don't think there are any in excess of what would typically be where you have this type of situation to order from the outside with the drive-through.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the signs would be relative to the pre-board menu, the menu board.
Who's speaking? I'm so sorry.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, could you just introduce yourself?
Of course.
Spell your last name and give your address, please, so I know who you are.
Yes, I'm Alexander Kosiski, the project manager from Bowler Engineering, which is located at 2929 Expressway Drive North in Hauppauge, New York. I'll spell my last name for you, Kosiski.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. To answer your question, as far as signage, Starbucks has its own particular signage package in regards to maneuvering people through the drive-through with the pre-board menu, the order board, the canopy, which is listed on the plan that you see right here. In addition, they're requesting relief for 5 wall signs, Starbucks signs on the 4 walls. More importantly, just to kind of go through the site, it is 3 existing tenants. We are going down to 2 tenants. As Vince had mentioned, we are repurposing the Friendly space to accommodate the drive-through for the Starbucks. The Starbucks is going to have a 14-car queue. We also have a traffic consultant to address any questions you have relative to any kind of queuing and stuff. But some of the setbacks we're here for today are existing, non-conforming. If you look at the aerial, we're kind of keeping the majority of the layout the same for the Friendly portion of the site, where the curb lines meet the residential. What we are doing is that we are improving the site by realigning some of the curb and offering a safer maneuverability with one-way access throughout the site. So just to address any kind of changes from some of the existing non-conforming items, those are what's triggering some of the variances.
Okay. And the additional curb cut, that's on 347?
Yes, it's an exist. So there's 3 curb cuts right now. 2 on 347, one on Mount Pleasant. One on Mount Pleasant. They're all existing to remain.
Oh, okay. Any other board member have any questions?
No, thank you.
I just had one other question. On the signs, you said that there's going to be signs on all four of the facades of the building. Are any of the signs that face the residences to the rear going to be lighted signs?
I must have, no, there's gonna be that one sign, if you can see right here. This would be the side, this would be the front. So no, actually, I misspoke. There's only gonna be signs at 3 of the 4 sides. My apologies.
And none of the ones on the ones facing the residence district will be lighted?
No.
Thank you.
Oh, speaking of lighting, are you going to put up additional light poles in the rear by the residential properties?
So we're going to remove the lights that are there. They're non-compliant for the friendlies portion. So we're going to update them with site compliant lighting, downlit, shielded. We're going to avoid putting anything near that residential portion. So we're going to try to light everything closer to Mount Pleasant Road and 347.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board have any questions? Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments for the board. So first, just to let all of you know that planning has received a number of phone calls from the residents to the north in the Yellow Top Farm Estates with concerns about the application, mainly with the queuing and the noise and the lighting coming from the drive-through, proposed drive-through lane. The first concern that we have is that obviously there is an overabundance of signage being proposed on the site, both ground and wall signs. Planning would recommend that the board consider cutting down the number of signage, the number of signs being proposed. Certainly, you know, a total of 14 or 15 signs for one building it certainly seems substantial in nature. And it also could set a precedent for other applications that come in the future. Secondly, there's been a very big concern about the menu board and the speaker for the menu board being on the north side of the building, immediately adjacent to the residence district. In reviewing the application, it certainly does seem that the residents do have valid concerns between noise, between lighting in the evening hours. Planning would recommend that the menu board and the speaker be relocated to the east side of the building where it would be further away from the residents and it would have much less impact to them, particularly during the evening hours. Third, there is an existing ground sign there right now. It's a ground sign that sits on a steel pole. And I believe that the proposal is to change out the existing Friendly's logo on that sign and put up a Starbucks logo. As the board is well aware, the town has been moving towards monument style ground signs for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years now. And planning would certainly recommend that any new ground signage meet that standard to have a monument style base, a masonry style base, not to exceed 2 to 3 feet, with an overall height for the ground side not to exceed 7 or 8 feet. And as a final note, the existing Friendly's building is an all brick building, and we would certainly like to see that architecture remain. So one thing that we would like the board to consider is to make sure that the current architecture is not changed from that red brick face finish.
Okay, thank you. Before I open it up to the audience, I just want to go over the procedures again. Everybody's going to get one opportunity to voice their concerns about this application. You know, if you have questions, they will be noted. When everybody is done, then we'll bring back the applicant to answer your questions and concerns, and then the case will be closed. All right, thank you. So now, is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on the application?
Mr. Chairman, I have a John Hoffman who would like to speak.
Okay, fine.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Hoffman. I live at 23 Yellow Top Lane. I'm an original homeowner who purchased, one of the 34 homeowners that purchased from Decanio. I'm also a member of the board. I'm a board member of the Yellow Top Farms HOA. and the treasurer. So I did, in advance of this hearing, present a prepared statement that I sent over to planning. Which,
you have it right here.
Yeah, which I see, and I wanted to read it into the record.
All right.
If that needs to be, or is it something that you've acknowledged into the record?
If you want to read it in.
Okay, I'd like to because
then fine.
I'm doing this on behalf of the 34 homeowners and the board.
Okay,
but
John, when you read it in, could you go slow?
I will. I will
take
for the
everything
court
down?
reporter. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we understand that the property owner has rights regarding the use of his property, and it is commercial property. However, we do not want to intensify the use of the property with new businesses, creating traffic issues, noise pollution, light pollution, and possibly safety concerns. The two drive-throughs proposed will create noise and light pollution. It'll create smell of exhaust, and the loudspeakers from the ordering boxes will be very close to the 6 homeowners that are along the property line there. The drive-throughs will be bringing the business that's currently inside of 7-Eleven and inside of Friendly's outside by creating ordering and noise levels outside the building and behind these buildings that'll be close to our homes. The noise from the cars, the smell of exhaust, the noise from the speakers, from customers ordering food will be a constant nuisance. The distance of the speaker order boxes situated so close to the Yellow Top Farm community needs to be reasonable and addressed. The way it is designed currently, the noise will be heard from these drive-through ordering boxes in our backyards in both the early hours and the late hours, which remains to be seen about the fast food restaurant. We don't know exactly what type of fast food, but if it's something like a Taco Bell, it could be all hours of the night. We suggest that the Starbucks speaker order box be located away from the community and closer to Route 347, which will reduce the noise pollution and the light pollution. And until I heard this, I'm going to add to my statement. I didn't know there was going to be 15 signs suggested, and I'm glad that the planning committee was addressing how many lighted signs we'd have, because we wouldn't want to over promote Starbucks in our backyards. So the lighting levels will increase due to the headlights of the cars, the additional lighting needed for the safety of this increased traffic flow that will cause an intensified use of, that will caused by the intensified use of the property. The lighting will shine directly in our backyards and the windows of 6 homes next to the businesses. We are requesting better fencing. Currently, the 6-foot stockade fencing that was put in originally is not being maintained and it's in disrepair. So we need to have something better than what was provided when the 34 homes were built by Buchanan originally. The noise barriers have to be considered. Additional trees, proper buffering, downlighting, consideration to the traffic flow of not only 1, but 2 drive-throughs, and any other solutions to reduce the sound, lighting issues that the new business will create. The introduction of 2 drive-throughs will create traffic issues that will not be able to be addressed. Traffic flow, traffic signals, it's a big concern to ensure the safety of our community. Children, senior citizens, motorists in the area needs to be addressed. Converging 2 drive-throughs in such a small footprint seems to be unreasonable. We reluctantly 1 drive-through is not ideal, but 2 businesses with drive-throughs is unreasonable and absurd. We ask the board to consider and address the noise pollution in both the early and late hours from the speaker boxes, the vehicle noise, the traffic flow issues, the safety issues, and the light pollution from the additional lighting and headlights of cars. We understand that we live next to commercial property, but to intensify the use of this property from a 7-Eleven convenience store, a tile store, and a Friendly's restaurant to a fast food restaurant and a Starbucks with 2 drive-throughs will create many issues we have raised in this statement, and it's unreasonable for the Smithtown community. Thank you for giving me time to speak heard.
All right, thank you, John. Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, no one else has their hand up. If anybody would like to speak on this application, please use the raise hand function.
I don't know if you see, but it looks like there's somebody who wants to be heard.
If there's somebody who, a neighbor who would like to be heard on this, either raise your hand.
There's one named Vivian De Jesus that keeps.
Or unmute yourself. Anybody?
There's a Vivian De Jesus, Pete, that doesn't seem to be unmuted.
On mine it says muted.
In the lower left hand, you should see a little microphone that's lit up red. Just click on that.
Wait, hello?
There you go.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Okay, could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record, please?
I live in Yellow Top Estates. My name is Danny Penagatos. I co-own the home with Vivian De Jesus.
Could you spell your last name so we get it correct on the record, please?
P-A-N-A-G-A-T-O-S. And I live in 2 Hayloft Court in Yellow Top Estates.
All right, thank you.
I kind of, most of the things that John actually brought up with the planting and the beautification and some sort of barrier with fence and trees. I also wanted, with that counter service restaurant there, not revealing who it is. It sounds like a fast food place. Are they going to be open 24 hours, or what are their hours going to be? Is there any restrictions on that?
We will ask.
Okay, because definitely with the, pretty much John summed it up with the noise and the traffic and the headlights and the fumes of drive-throughs. So I kind of, seconding pretty much everything John was saying. And also with 2 drive-throughs, are they both going to be entering on 347 or on Mount Pleasant?
We'll ask that question.
Yeah, because it might be like a nuisance for the cars to go past on 347. I've seen some of the Starbucks that it's blocking a lane. That it's. I know they have it going around the building, but then when there's too many cars, it starts funneling out onto the main street. So that's all that I like. So on behalf of all the Yellow Top people, I'm pretty much going along with everything John was concerned about.
All right, fine. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see additional hands. If there's anybody who would like to speak, possibly unmute yourself.
Can I answer the neighbor's concerns, or would you like
to? Well, let's get them all first.
Okay, awesome.
No one, Peter?
Nobody else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, last call.
And Alec, before you speak, I'd just like to address the board real quickly.
Okay, Mr. DeCanio, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board. I don't think anyone, and I'm certain most of the residents are aware of my personal interest in keeping that community as ideal as it is. Well, not only recently, on a few occasions, I've actually met with the president. Mr. Hoffman is aware of that. Gave them color renderings and offered whatever input that they would have. And that was prior to them sending their concerns to the planning department, which we've addressed tonight. And many of these concerns we're going to address in the utmost matter that we can, and I think it's going to, for the most part, satisfy these concerns. But even prior to recently, before submitting, the owners met with the board because the fence was run down. We met with Mr. Hoffman's wife, but definitely Michael DeVito, who's the president of the association. Concerned because there are cats there, and it's a situation that's been aggravating for many years. And they asked us to replace or repair the fence, and we did repair it with the understanding that when we were going to go for site plan approval and the variances tonight, that we would replace the fence. We would address every one of their concerns, including any noise, et cetera. And I think the best person to address it from an engineering professional point of view would be Alec.
Okay.
Move it over.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond? Can I respond to John Hoffman?
No, 1 second, please.
Okay.
Is there someone who hasn't spoken yet that came late?
Mr. Chairman, there is one hand raised. iPhone MN is the name the person is labeled as right now.
Okay, can we get him on?
Yes, that's me. My name is Max Nicholas, and I apologize.
Your name is what?
Could you spell your last name, please, sir?
My last name is Nicholas.
What is the first name?
Maccellan.
Okay, what are your concerns, sir?
My concern is I share the same sentiment that was expressed by Mr. Hoffman as well as Danny. I live directly behind the proposed site, and I would be directly affected as well. So I share the same concern, and I would like to express my support for the letter that was written on behalf of all the residents.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else before I bring back the engineer to address your concerns?
I would like to be heard to just speak to the fact that Vincent never met with my wife about a fence. That was all handled by Mike DeVito. And originally, we were told that we were never told that it was their fence. We thought it was our fence and our responsibility. And when we asked about why it was turned towards us, they said we did that to be nice to the community. So I was under the impression that that was my fence. And what the community did is we all put proper PVC fencing up, 6-foot white PVC fencing, in response to a picket fence that was falling apart. And, you know, after Mike, the president, DeVito, addressed it with Mr. DeCanio, he did come and repair some of the panels.
Okay, fine. All right, now we're going to bring back Mr. DeCanio's representative to answer your other concerns, and then we're going to close the hearing. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to start with answering the signage questions first. As far as the signage, it does sound like a lot of signs. We're requesting 5 wall signs, but if you look at the architectural, it's really 3 signs. The problem is they're mounted individually, and per the code, if they're mounted individually as a sign, they are each a sign. So as you can see, it says Starbucks drive-through, which here it's considered 2, but it's ultimately 1. It's just the way it's mounted. As far as the addressing the issues with the ground signs are throughout the entire property. It's extremely important that Starbucks gets these ground signs to maneuver their clients through the drive-through. A lot of the signage, as you can see when I zoom into this drive-through, is that you'll have multiple signs in one area of location, which in most people that have gone to any of the Starbucks, you'll have the pre-order board and the menu board and the board that you would order your order on it. So there's multiple signs in certain vicinities of the area, which it does sound overwhelming when you speak to the number of signs. But as I mentioned, when it comes to the wall and the ground signs, they're really bunched into those same areas. And those ground signs really help mitigate the traffic throughout the site plan. To express, I wrote down some of the comments the neighbors have made to the concerns relative to traffic. We do have a traffic consultant here that will also speak on behalf of that, but the 3 existing curb cuts will remain two-way access. As you can see, we have modified the curb lines to make it a safer traffic route and maneuverability throughout the site. And in doing that, we've added one-way circulation that in the event the drive-through backs up a little bit, there's actually safe maneuverability around the site, and also provided pedestrian accessibility through the sites through Mount Pleasant Road and 347. If you look at that site right now, there's no safe way for kids or anyone entering the site to come off the highway and enter that property. So we're actually taking that into consideration as far as safety. And as you can see in our site plan, we did add, stop bars, stop signs, one-way signage to enhance that concern. Relative to the concern about lighting, we are going to provide LED lighting compliant to town code. We are going to provide screening at that 7-foot buffer to avoid any headlights. As you can see in the aerial today, that curb, we're leaving that as is. It's existing to remain, but we're going to add some additional shielding. When it comes to the second fast food restaurant, that grade is substantially lower. We're looking at like 3 to 4 feet down in grade change. So I don't anticipate any true headlights entering the rear of the properties. But to answer Vince DeCanio, or to add on to Vince DeCanio's statement, the property owner is open to actually replacing that fence and providing a new fence that would accommodate the neighbors up front at the north to satisfy that issue.
Okay. In the rear, do you have enough parking so you could land bank that parking for now?
It'd be something I could talk to Starbucks and see. Based on our traffic studies, we don't need those stalls. It would just be a matter of me going back to Starbucks and asking to land bank them.
Okay, thank you.
And the last comment I'd like to address is the noise. So the newer restaurants these days are equipped with something called automatic volume control menu boards.
Automatic what?
Automatic volume control menu boards.
Volume.
Yes. I could actually provide a spreadsheet to the board after the hearing so you could see the true values of what it produces. But I actually mimicked an exhibit so the board can see and the neighbors can see that if you stood about 16 feet away from that menu board, the board would reach about 60 decibels, which is relative to 3-foot normal conversation between 2 people. As you get further away to that 65-foot range, you can see we get down to 48 decibels, which is really just over a whisper. The beauty of the automatic volume control menu boards is that they monitor the areas around you. So if it's loud, they go up to that 60 decibel, but at night they actually reduce down to 36 decibels, which is just above a whisper between you and someone else about 6 feet apart. So these menu boards are very high tech. A lot of the fast food restaurants do use these new menu boards because it does reduce the sign. Starbucks typically usually closes between 9 and 10 o'clock, so I don't anticipate any concerns for that volume post those late hours. To address the concerns with the potential other fast food restaurant, we work with any other fast food restaurants out there. We are about 130 feet away from that property line. We also don't anticipate noise coming through that spot. We can't speak on who will actually be there at this time, but we do have adequate spacing from the properties. And the last thing I want to note, and you can go to the other sites in the town of Smithtown, typically the menu board is actually in the 5th car stack. If you look at this exhibit, we're actually at the 7th car. That's the best and farthest Starbucks can do to operate and to operate the way they need to operate to move the drive-through at a quicker pace. So yes, we've taken that into consideration, and we've actually moved the board 2 cars back further away from the neighbors.
Do you know the hours of operation of Starbucks?
Typically, the Starbucks nearby are operating between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., but they vary. Some open at 6, some close at 9. This hasn't been established for this area yet, but we're looking at hours around those.
7 days a week?
7 days a week.
Thank you.
Yes,
All
and
right.
Mr. Chairman, and not to belabor the board, but with regard to the fence, it even predates myself. It's a commercial fence that was done probably 50 years ago when the owners of the property, east now, built friendlies, et cetera. And it is a commercial fence, as we all know, only because requirement of the code and their galvanized steel posts. We fully agree with replacing it, and we did pass it on, as Mr. Hoffman said, to the president of the company, who told me that he brought it to the board. Most definitely, we want to continue to be good neighbors and definitely respect all their concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeCanio. Okay, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hit that red thing. See the red thing on top, to the left, top. The left top.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18600, DeCanio Management Corp., 744 Wisconsin Highway, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of Wisconsin Highway and the interminus of Town Commons Drive. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the required lot area from 80,000 square feet to 78,979 square feet. To reduce the front yard setback on Town Commons Road from 50 feet to 36 feet. To reduce the front yard landscape area from 80% to 77%. To eliminate the required truck loading space. To reduce the front yard parking setback from 50 feet to 20 feet along Route 347. To reduce the front yard parking setback from 100 feet to 20 feet on Town Commons Drive. To reduce the setback to the residential district from 100 feet to 36 feet. To eliminate the required buffer screen and fence to the residential district for a proposed 32,010 square foot, 2-story mini storage warehouse.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Vincent DeCanio, 117 Terry Road, Smithtown, New York, applicant and developer.
Okay, Mr. DeCanio, go right ahead.
Yes, well, as the board is well aware, this project actually has been over 30 years, 550 homes, counting apartments, the Windcrest that immediately abuts us, homeowners association, the peripheral of the restaurants and uses that are there now, CVS, Carrabba's, etc. This is the last piece of the puzzle of these 32-year journey that I've had with the town of Smithtown. We're very proud of the Galleria. And 3 years ago, we came before your board and asked for 2 office buildings. It predated COVID, and we did get all the grants of the variances that were just identified. They were granted previously by the board of BZA. However, when COVID hit, there's an overabundance, and as we all know, of office buildings. So we had all intentions of commencing the first office building, but in lieu of that, since there is a glut in the market and it's a different world, we decided that the mini storage would be much more appropriate. Most of the 550 units that we built do not have apartments. We worked closely with planning over the years to develop it. In fact, even when we did Avalon, which was, we commenced that construction in 1995, we provided off-street parking with garages that we thought would be garages, but no one actually uses them. They use it for storage. And this is an appropriate use and less intensive. And the variances that we're requesting are exactly what we requested when we had the office buildings approved, as well as the FAR. We took the two buildings that were previously approved, and I have my engineer, which is H2M Corp, Joel Richardson, who could speak on that behalf. But we took those two buildings and combined them to create the one building that's being shown on the screen right now. And instead of just having a box, we tried to, that are typically throughout Smithtown and elsewhere of self-storage. We continue to have a stone facade, and we tried to create some bump outs so the architecture would be continuous and likewise to what we've done with the entire community. Also on this application, Mr. Chairman and the board, I met on several occasions, and if they're here tonight to speak, with the Windcrest Homeowners Association. We've eliminated the retaining wall, which was a major concern of theirs, that abuts their residences. Even though it was approved, we've eliminated it with this application so we can continue to maintain extra, and it's shown on the plan, the existing trees that were previously approved through DEW, et cetera. And we also have a side agreement, which is not part of the application, that we've agreed with the residences on their property to do additional planting so they would have screening. So I think under the circumstances, this is a better use than what was previously approved. And we're not asking for any other variances that were previously approved.
Thank you.
Questions we would have from Mr. Richardson would be able to answer those an engineering point of.
All right, I will ask. Is there anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out, as with the last application, planning did receive some communication from some of the residents to the north regarding the application. I'm sure that some of them are here to speak about it tonight. Just a couple of comments regarding the proposal. As Mr. DeCanio had said, he had come before the board about 2.5 years ago with a proposal to build two office buildings with related parking and landscaping, and the board granted those variances. The proposal that's before the board this evening is similar in nature in that none of the variances being requested are any more intensive than the previous variances that were granted. This particular use, a mini storage warehouse, is permitted within the zoning district. It doesn't require a special exception application. As Mr. DeCanio had pointed out, if you look at the photos that were on the screen previously, the proposed building is proposed to match the architecture of the previously approved office buildings. So this would probably be one of, if not the most attractive mini warehouse buildings within the town and possibly even on the eastern seaboard. So planning is certainly supportive of the application. There are a couple of minor details, perhaps about the buffer and screening and so forth and so on, but that's something that could be handled during the site plan review process.
All right, thank you. Again, before I open it up to the public, I just want to go over the ground rules. Everybody will be given one opportunity to express their concerns on the application. Once everyone is done, we'll bring back Mr. DeCanio and whatever representatives he has with him to answer your concerns. Okay, thank you. So again, is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we do have one hand raised, Linda Donahue. So I will unmute you now and you can speak. Oh, you are unmuted. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. DeCanio. My name is Linda Donahue, Donohue, and I live at 4 Chelsea Drive in Smithtown, in the Windcrest community. My home is directly behind the property, so I will be looking at that building when I use my backyard. And I'd like if you could go into a little bit more detail about how you will address the privacy issue and the buffer that you spoke of. Thank you for putting the trees on our side, but if you could just give us a little information. I know approximately 2 years ago, just before COVID, they came in and the land was, the woods were knocked down, and then there's a small strip of trees that are left. I'd just like to know if those trees are going to remain. What is the buffer going to look like? Also, the lighting, how will that be addressed? Is there going to be any lighting at the back of the building? And also, there appears to be a stockade fence, but I'm not clear if that's your property or if that's the adjacent property. If maybe you could just answer that question. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else like to be heard on this application?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Elliot Abraham, ABR AHAM, 14 Chelsea Drive. I also live directly behind the facility. I've been here for 20 years now. I've met Mr. DeCanio on several occasions through his attempt to develop the land in the past, and he's always been reasonable and accommodating. What I just wanted to make sure of with these setbacks, I was a little confused in the description because it seemed like they kept flip-flopping on what was the front and what was the rear. But I assume looking at this picture that the front runs along 347 with no direct access off of Town Commons Road. Am I understanding that correctly? And then additionally, to second the concerns from the last speaker, what would, and like effectively, what is the plan for lighting in the back of the building, signage? I know in the past when they were going to do a medical building, there were concerns about where garbage dumpsters were going to be getting placed. So I guess the bulk of the concerns really are around what's really going to be the backside of this building. Is there going to be trucks pulling in and out? The fact that they indicated that there's eliminating any type of buffer and fencing. And the biggest concern effectively is because this building is on a rise from where our homes are, they're effectively at the same level as our bedroom windows. So lighting is certainly a concern. I think the building itself looks great. Kudos to that. I don't have an issue with the purpose of the land. I know it's his to develop, so I think that's certainly feasible. So those are the kind of concerns. It's more about what's going to happen along the back of Town Commons Road. There's a lot of traffic already, but if I'm reading this correctly, then there is no access to the property from Town Commons, which was one of the big sticking points in the past when they were trying to put a medical building in. So I think I've elaborated all my concerns right now, mostly around lighting, garbage, and just what's going to be in the back with the removing of a buffer and fencing being indicated.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I currently don't see any hands. If anyone would like to speak, please either raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, doesn't look like anyone else wants to speak.
Oh, one other, I'm sorry to jump back on. What would the hours of operation for something like this be? Is it a 24/7 access to this type of a facility, or are there hours?
Okay, we'll ask. All right, Mr. DeCanio, if you want to come back and address their concerns.
The same preface as I previously stated earlier. Have personal interest in keeping this community as top priority. Needless to say, it's in the town of Smithtown. And my whole adult life, it's developing, hopefully, structures where they live, that they're pleased with them. But to answer their questions, yes, the trees that are shown on the site plan are existing trees, and they're left to be remained. So that's why they are on the plan of the town of Smithtown. And with our application is a very detailed landscape plan where we've agreed with the town to do extenuous more planting as required by the town of Smithtown. Smithtown, in fact, and Blaze could attest to that, had originally asked the planning department, but I have an access onto Town Commons Road, even for the storage building. But after meeting with Virginia Bowler, the president of your homeowners association, as well as the other board members, we felt that even though many of we have somewhat a built-in audience, hopefully, that want to use this storage, let's keep the community as natural as we can, and it's not much of an inconvenience to come in through. It'll be gated with pass cards to be able to get in only from 347. And those 2 curb cuts that exist was done as part of the New York State plan and built by them. So we're only expanding on that, and we have no access onto Town Commons Drive at all. Because there's been a traffic issue where you've had to put boulders up, which are part of the aerials, I'm sure, that we see. And it was to protect some of the accidents that actually went into your backyards. And I don't know who the 2 people that spoke tonight, if it was your home. We agreed to do additional planting. The town did not require us to because it's not on our property, but we've agreed with your attorneys 2.5 years ago that when it was in the winter time, when there wasn't any foliage, that we would walk the property, and any of the bare spots that we would do this additional evergreen wall to help screen your home. So I think whatever enjoyment you have right now, we're actually going to make it better in twofold. Not only what the town requires, and the town of Smithtown has some very stringent landscaping plans. It's not done shabbily. All entranceways, all access with this new layout, as the plan indicates, is only from the front and from the 2 sides. We kept the garbage that was brought up, the dumpsters, right what was originally approved, so it would not impact. And it's shown on that northeast corner. So in reality, this is ended up being a much better plan, a very low intensity, with the same as planning department and Blaze has already brought up, and he read into the statement that we're keeping it architecturally pleasing with the overall 550 homes in the last 32 years of what I built. And this is the Galleria Quadrant, the last quarter, the last piece of the 90-acre plus development that I'm proud of, and that I appreciate all the input that even the town of Smithtown and all the staff over the years have given me. So hopefully this could be approved, and we're here to continue to make it a very proud community. In words.
What are the hours of operation, Mr. DeCanio?
That I'm not certain of, because we didn't sign an actual tenant. We've had so many interests, because I know recently, and Blaze could possibly tell you that better than I can, that the board has approved on Route 25 and one in Kings Park. But this was such a natural that we didn't sign anyone. We felt, let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see if the board approves us. But I'm certain they're going to be reasonable hours, and they're not going to be lit in the back, because we want the back to still continue to be attractive architecturally. But as you can see, there isn't any reason why anyone would be there, and including the fencing that's up currently there. It's a split rail fence, 8 feet off and part of the POA, the Property Owners Association, which we're all a member of. And it's a 24-foot road that we maintain and 8 foot of lawn on each side, and sidewalks will continue to be maintained by us. And if anything, we'll put additional fencing that we would show to the planning board and the town board when we go for site plan approval, including the hours of operation at that time, unless Blaze has, I don't know what the normal hours are of the rest of the mini storage in the area.
Okay. You don't plan any signage in the rear?
No, but we didn't go, correct. There is no reason for it. But at that time, we will go before the Board of Zoning Appeals if necessary. That's why I only showed it on the 2 entranceways. And not only was it architecturally pleasing, I intentionally did it that way so we would have where most of these mini storages you go, and if it's raining, as we've experienced the last day or two, you need your umbrellas. This would give you an opportunity to put your code in if you did want to enter into your storage area and still be protected from the elements outside, besides being architecturally pleasing.
Okay. Where are the overhead doors located?
Right now, we don't have them, but maybe Joel, would you like to speak on any of that? We do have Joel Richardson, our engineer department, on that.
Sure.
But this was conceptual for now, Mr. Chairman and the board. So hopefully those more detailed, very necessary, good questions will address prior to site plan.
Okay. Joel, can you just introduce yourself, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and state your address, please.
My name's Joel Richardson, RICHARDSON, civil engineer with H2M Architects and Engineers. Our address is 538 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, 11747.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening to the board and to you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the question that was asked, the overhead doors, at least in that footprint for the building, are all contemplated to be within the interior spaces of the building, so they'd all be accessed from corridors inside the building.
Okay, and there's no parking in the rear?
There's no parking in the rear. There's no pedestrian access in the rear. There'd be no reason to provide any lighting within the rear of the property. Like Mr. DeCanio said, we had, with the previous site plan that we had prepared for the office buildings, we had proposed supplementary planting in the rear of the property that would abut the residential and town common road. So I assume that we would present something very similar. The idea was to replicate what was previously approved with this different use.
All right. Thank you. I think that covers everything. Yeah. You have anything, Pete?
We do not see anybody's hands up at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Would you be amenable to land bank some of that parking for now until you need it?
In fact, we're proposing to land bank of the 96 parking spaces that are required, we're proposing to land bank 59 of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Could you just define the term land bank?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Elliot Abraham again. I'm just not familiar with the term land bank.
It's leaving the land in its natural state and not putting any kind of asphalt or concrete in until it's needed down the road.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we take 5 minutes?
Certainly.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18601, ex-Gulf, Comac, Jeffrey Schwartz, 108 Veterans Memorial Highway, Comac. The location of the property, the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway, 900 feet west of Sunken Meadow Parkway. The property is owned SCB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum parking from 2,363 spaces to 2,033 spaces for a proposed 1,175 square foot mezzanine, to increase the maximum area of a wall sign from 18 square feet to 36 square feet, to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 23 feet, to increase the maximum projection of a wall sign from 12 inches to 36 inches for a proposed 36 square foot wall sign.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Yes, Brian Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, for the applicant.
All right, go right ahead, sir.
Good evening, thank you all. As Blaze said, yes, this is an exciting concept, ex-golf. It's been approved by the town board with a special exception. As well, it was subject of a Newsday article. It's in an indoor golf simulator entertainment use. Great for businesses, great for families, great for young people going out on a Saturday night. Great for people like me who have no business playing Bethpage Black. You can go there and do golf simulation and play Bethpage Black. We're seeking sign variances, as Blaze said, of which the overall request is, I would submit de minimis. In addition, completely in line with other sign variances that have been granted by this board at this property. I have a few decisions I can read off. 18247, which was for a clothing store at this location, which granted the variance that we're seeking for square footage is a 50% variance and a 35% variance for height. That 18247 was for a 60.5% variance for square footage and 37.5% height. Another one, which is actually the store right next door to it, Five Below, that was decision 18223 from 2019. That square footage was a 64% variance. Again, we're only seeking 50%. Just three more, I'll read them quickly. 18119, which was for Whole Foods, that was a 65% variance for square footage, 52% variance for height. Hobby Lobby 17757, 40% variance for height, we're only seeking 35%. And Miller's Ale House 16882, which was a, Toys R Us 16742, which was a 52% variance for height, we're only seeking 35%. So you can see from the image that Blaze just put up, it's a very narrow storefront, which is why the signage variances are being requested. In addition to the last one, which was interesting, it's a variance to allow the sign to protrude off of the facade. And the reason why, again, it's a very narrow storefront, and we could not put a sign the width of the wall. It would be either too large. For it to be seen, it would either be too large and would bleed onto the other storefronts, or it would be way too narrow and it would not be able to be seen. And again, as you know, this building is fairly far set back from Veterans Memorial Highway. So that's the justification, I believe, for the sign variances. To address the parking, Dale Koch is available as well from Bowler Engineering. But just to make a clarifying point on that. Our variances is not a 300 stall variance. There already is an existing deficiency which has built up over years on this property. All we're seeking is an 8-space variance to allow for an 1,100 square foot mezzanine. As I said at the top of the presentation, this particular use is great for businesses, corporate events, and social gatherings. That mezzanine would help this business immeasurably. Be able to have those in safe and with enough space. So adding that mezzanine is only adding an 8-car increase in the demand for parking, so an 8-car variance. And I would submit with 2,033 spaces available on the property, an 8-car increase is as well de minimis without any significant impacts.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Oh, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands being raised at this time. If anybody would like to speak, please either raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay. Doesn't appear anybody would like to speak.
Okay, fine, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Be well.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18406, MJ Industries LLC, 27 Montclair Avenue, St. James. The location of the property, the east side of Montclair Avenue, 745 feet south of Rutherford Street. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting a special exception to maintain outdoor storage in the LI zoning district, a special exception to maintain a trucking station, variance of a special exception standard to increase the amount of outdoor storage from 1 times the gross floor area to 8.4 times. Variance of a special exception standard to reduce the setback of outdoor storage from all streets and residence districts from 100 feet to 0. Variance of a special exception standard to eliminate the required densely planted trees and shrubs in the required 100-foot buffer. Variance of a special exception standard to increase the maximum height of outdoor storage from 6 feet to 20 feet. Variance of a special exception standard that requires a trucking station to have a densely planted buffer at least 50 feet deep to any residence district. Variance of a special exception standard that prohibits fuel storage above ground. A variance to reduce the front yard setback on Montclair Avenue from 50 feet to 15 feet for existing fences, walls, and outdoor storage. Variance to reduce the front yard setback on Harvard Street from 50 feet to 0 for existing fences, walls, outdoor storage, and sheds. Variance to reduce the parking setback from the south property line from 6 feet to 0. A variance to increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 11 feet. Variance to increase the setback of a 6-foot fence from the top of an 11-foot retaining wall from 11 feet to 0. A variance to increase the height of a 6-foot fence on top of an 11-foot retaining wall from 6 feet to 17 feet. A variance to reduce the minimum setback of an existing retaining wall from any lot line from 6 feet to 0. A variance to eliminate the required landscape islands in the required parking areas. A variance to increase the height of an accessory structure, a truck garage, from 18 feet to 30 feet.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Chris LeBay of the firm Lab Crew Engineering.
How are you, Chris?
I'll be speaking for the applicant. This is our 3rd meeting on this site. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Go ahead.
You're buffering a little bit, so can we smoothly. So this is our 3rd third meeting on this. At the last one, we met about a month ago. The board wished to hold this case open so they could drive by the site and see if they had any questions about it. I could read back through my old speech on the site and address the issues if this, but in a matter of time, I guess if the board really has any questions, I'd like to just answer them tonight.
Okay, fine. Okay. The board members that went to the site, do you have any questions for Chris?
We were there yesterday, and there needs to be a lot of cleanup on this site.
Yes, ma'am. They've been cleaning it up. You know, part of the issues was that the encroachment onto the northerly property, which he had pulled back. He had installed a gravity block wall along the zoning line and has been cleaning it. There's the photograph that you can see that we were done by a drone to show the difference in the scope of work from the beginning of the summer. We've addressed a lot of the variances
Someone
and
needs
issues.
to
We've
mute.
gotten rid of the above ground.
Somebody
fuel
needs to
tank.
mute.
We've contacted the
Go ahead, Chris.
Everybody okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So at the last presentation, we were going over how much work the client has put into this with the replacement of the landscaping and everything to the north. The new the paper street to be abandoned. Not sand mining. There's no sand mining on site. That it was just cleaning the sand, and which the client has a DEC permit to do. Removing all the structures and the hopper for the concrete, which the use has stopped a while ago, but there is an existing permit for it. The fourth condition, or the fourth recommendation is about the height of the storage containers, which was addressed. And the fifth one was to better comply with zoning variances and ordinance. We've eliminated 2 of them, but we still request the 2 special permits and approximately 13 of the variances. Again, just to go over from before, there hasn't been one complaint about this site since my client's taken it over. They've occupied the property for almost 16 years. They've owned half of it and have purchased the other piece about 10 years ago, as you can see in the pictures. It's been determined that the residential area, we're going to revert it back to natural and put some additional landscaping in. We're looking to do a berm, as you can see at the top of that, with upon the board's request of planning board, how we're going to design
How we will design the,
and that the client has a
I'm
DEC
sorry,
permit
you cut
to
out. I don't know if
perform
that's me or you.
The sand. The cutout, I'm sorry.
You cut out, Chris. We couldn't hear what you were saying.
So that's really what we were addressing here.
All
right, I
Chris.
seem to be buffering a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any questions I really could answer directly?
Yeah, you have a number of containers. You have plows stored on top of the containers. Is there any way to take those off and store them someplace else? Chris?
Yes, we can definitely take anything off that's on top of the containers. That was an issue with one of the conditions from planning staff.
Right. Now, and the old concrete rusted batching machine tower, you gonna take that down?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
We can take down everything off. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
We're looking to remove the hopper. Yes, we're looking to remove it, yes.
Okay, fine. Does anyone else have any questions for Chris?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
Just a couple of quick comments, Mr. Chairman. So we had done a site visit yesterday morning just to take a look around at the site to see if there was any additional cleanup or any additional reorganizing done. It appears, as you mentioned, that there's still some issues with outdoor storage with pieces of equipment being stored on the top of storage containers. The berm to the north, minus the plantings themselves, appears to be complete. And it does appear that the cleanup got everything that was in the residence district out, and that the wall that delineates the residence district boundary line is right on the line. So the applicant is now utilizing all of the commercially zoned property for his business. going through the list of items that we had as far as a recommendation goes. As far as I'm aware, the street abandonment has been completed, or at the very least should be substantially completed at this point. We tried to help the applicant in any way we could. The buffer has been started, substantially created, and I guess should this move forward to site plan review, whatever plantings are going to go into the buffer and onto the berm will be discussed at that point. The site overall does still appear to have quite a bit of material on it. There are a number of material bins, different types of materials that are on the site. You know, maybe that's something that can be addressed during the site plan review process. And as far as the setbacks go, as far as I could tell in the visit that we went on, with the exception of the buffer being reestablished and the zoning boundary line being reestablished, it appears that the setbacks that were existing are still existing at this point. So that's something that the applicant will still have to address at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this time. If anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. And I do not believe anybody would like to speak.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.